Chennai Book Club. Today, reviewer of the day, Swapna ma'am. She's going to review on the book I Am Red. So we are having Erling, the star member of Chennai Book Club, to introduce the speaker of the day. So it's my immense pleasure to introduce the speaker of the day, Mrs. Swapna Sundar. So Swapna Sundar is a lawyer with over 20 years of experience in litigation and legal strategy. She is the senior partner of PVS Giridhar Associates, Law Chambers and Legal Strategies of IT Dome, IP Strategy Advisors. She is chairperson of Apollo Biomedical Research Ethics Committee and chairperson of NCCMR of Innovation Center. She is also member legal of several ethics committees in Chennai, including Apollo Clinical Trial Committee, ICMR NIE Ethics Committee, SIMS Ethics Committee, and Ethics Committee of Fortis Muller. After studying political science in NCC, she studied law at the Dr. Ambedkar Law University and then proceeded to study international law with international relations in Brussels, Belgium, before joining the University of Kent at Canterbury, UK to assist in teaching British constitutional law. She teaches IPR law, technology law, clinical trial ethics and related subjects at various institutions, including Nalsar University of Law, Hidayatullah National Law University, Bennett Law School, IIT Madras, URGIP, and many other law and engineering institutions. She is an author of books on law and society. She writes articles on law and technology. She lives and works in Chennai. We welcome you, ma'am. The stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It might be there.
Mike, yeah. It's always a pleasure to come here to this erudite audience who loves books. So today my review is on this book. My Name is Red by Orhan Pamuk, and that's why this get up. Because if you see Persian miniatures or Arabic illustrations or Chinese miniatures, everything is very bright and colorful, and green and red are very popularly depicted in the miniatures. So a brief about what the book is first. I've sent some images to you so that you can have an understanding of what the book is about. But this book comes from a tradition called historiographic metafiction. So it is not historical fiction. It is a book that questions the history that you have read and who are the voices that have narrated that history to you and why you believe it, the unreliability of some narrators and the reliability of certain other narrators, and whose voices are heard when history is written and whose voices are dismissed. So there are many narrators in this book. There are about 12 human narrators. Then there is a corpse. There is a newly dead human. I don't know whether we should call him human or another corpse. There is a dog, a horse, a tree, a fake gold coin, and the color red. So all of these are different narrative themes. So each of them comes with an independent assessment of what is happening in the story. It is literally up to the it's up to the reader which narrator we consider reliable, which narrator story we are listening to. What is the story about? So for this, a little bit of who Orhan Pamuk is required. He's a Turkish writer. He started off by wanting to be a painter. Then he's from an affluent family. He studied in American school in Turkey. And in the 70s, he started to study architecture, but he dropped it to become a full-time writer. So definitely he was a man of leisure. He didn't have to work like many of us. But he also used that time to explore certain conflicts in Turkey, which are very relevant to the conflicts that we are facing here in India today. What are the conflicts that he's talking about? Primarily the conflicts between conservatism and newly emerging trends. Let us not call it liberalism, let us not call it progressive. Let's just take it as newly evolving trends of ideology, of narration, of discussion, and so on. The second conflict is between East and West. So I have sent you that map of Istanbul. So Istanbul is almost cut in half by the Straits of Bosphorus. One side is Asian, the other side is European. The rest of Turkey is in Asia. So Istanbul faces this particularly tense discussion or conflict between whether it's a European city or an Asian city. That's the other conflict. The third conflict is between tradition and modernism, which is different from conservative and liberalism. Tradition and modernism is following the traditional practices in art, in narration, in drama, in music, in lifestyle. And then the modernism, which is represented by how Europe is perceiving it. So this is a very personal conflict. And all his books, so I've read at least most of his books, I think, not all, I've not read all of his books, only those that are translated. So before this was a book called Car or Snow, which he claims is the only political book, which is clearly about secularism and the new religious issues that are arising in Turkey. The next is My Name is Red. Then there is Museum of Innocence, which is a very interesting book. Essentially, it is the story of the love a 30-year-old man has for an 18-year-old bookseller, and then how it goes. And then he creates a museum, and apparently if we are in Istanbul, we can visit that museum. So that's something that I'd like to do. The next book that I really like is Strangeness in My Mind, which is actually 60 years of how Istanbul evolved from a fairly small city to what it is now, and how people who enter Istanbul have grown, not grown, or fallen by the wayside, which is very typical to our metropolis. So Chennai also, if my mother or people of that generation are speaking about it, they talk about how other people came from other cities into Chennai or towns or villages, and how they set up their lives and became part of the scene in Chennai. So similar to that. Then the latest one that I read is Nights of Plague, which is another book on similar to this, on historiographic metafiction, but that has to do with how plagues spread and how it was controlled, and who were the people who suffered because of the plague, who escaped, which was very pertinent because of the pandemic. So for me, it was very interesting to see that 100 years ago, probably the situation was exactly the same in Europe or in Turkey. So these are the books that I've read, and what I have felt is every time I read it, I feel a very personal connection with them. Some books we are willing to let others borrow, but this book I like. Or one form of really, you can get it on Amazon, you can get it on Kindle, because it becomes very personal. I think there's something very, very personal about this book, and Umberto Eco is the other writer that I really like. In fact, The Name of the Rose and My Name is Red are very closely interrelated. They're not the same story at all, but there is a lot of interrelation. That's the background. Now, what happens in this book? This is a book about 4 miniaturists. So, like the pictures that I shared with you on the group. So that is miniature painting. Miniature painting is essentially in a book, and it is like an illustration for a children, like how we have illustrations in children's books. It's an illustration which goes along with the text, a small sized image, and it has various characters and so on. There are many stories that he tells about where this form of art emerged from. And today, if you notice, and this is very interesting for me, there is no more miniature art in the Arab countries. Probably it emerged from there, but today, whatever a few instances are all available in Western museums or in Turkish museums and so on, and of course in our museum as Mughal miniatures. But apart from that, there is no art of miniaturization left in, say, Afghanistan or Yemen or Syria. One, because they are very delicate, they're made of paper and they disappear, unlike canvas. They're not sculptures, but even Taliban destroyed the sculptures also, the Bamiyan Buddhas and so on. So anyway, they don't anymore exist there. But the second thing about it is, there are also images that are very pertinent to the text. Without the text, there is no meaning to that image. So these miniaturists are working for Sultan Murad in 1591. And at this time, the king, the Sultan, he goes to Europe and he visits the Venetian palaces and he sees portraits for the first time. Portraiture was introduced with Michelangelo and others in about 1470 and so on. So when he sees, he's very impressed. He says, okay, my miniatures, I can't make out my own face. We know that this guy is the king because he has a crown, but everybody's faces looks the same. There is no need, I can't make out that this is me. So he secretly commissions a book saying, I want to show how powerful I am, so make a book for me in the European tradition. This is where the conflict comes. They believe that all miniatures should be represented. You saw the first image in the picture which I shared on the group. There is no perspective. Perspective means that things which are far away look smaller and things which are closer look bigger to us. And similarly, if I go out of this room and turn left, then you can't see me, isn't it? But in miniature art, you can still see me because there is no shape. All the structures are visible at the same time. The answer to that, or the reason why it is like that, is because apparently Allah is able to see like that. Since God is above us all, there is nothing hidden from Him. If He were to look at us, then our turning a corner would not matter. So their theory is, when we are illustrating text, we should represent Allah's viewpoint, not our viewpoint. Our viewpoint is very small, it's very personal, it's very individualistic, and we are not allowed to do that. The second fear they have is, if I am able to present this Swapna, this is the king, this is the the Venetian prince, and we are able to recognize him, then we may start worshipping him, adoring him, and that will lead to idolatry, which is again banned in Islam. So these four miniaturists are very scared, but they've been paid a huge amount of money to do this book, and they are really not sure how to achieve this outcome. One of them gets murdered, and that's where it starts. It's the corpse of that person who speaks to us from inside a well. He's saying, I'm nothing but a corpse inside a well. And that's the first story, and he says why he was murdered. And then there are various other streams also. There's naturally love. Pamuk is very fond of passionate love, and very much in the Leila Majnu or Khusra Shirin style, all encompassing love where you give up everything for the person or you die. That kind of love he represents in all. Museum of Innocence is really like that. It's like, if I don't have that woman, my life is meaningless kind of love. So there is that kind of love as well. But the main story is about who killed this miniaturist and why. Why was he killed? So the story goes through all these different voices. So a tree says, no, do I want to be represented as a tree? Because I don't want to be an independent tree. I want to be the meaning of tree. I don't want to be a tree. But the gold coin or the horse says, I don't want to be any horse. I want to be my particular horse. People should know that I am the horse that is being represented. In all this, there is yet another very interesting arena. So there are many spaces that